Well, the process, as you know, the PhD starts the process very early, and it's a very deliberate process. I think in my particular case, it was especially a difficult decision, not on my part, but on the government's part, whether I should stay on to lead the SAS or whether I should come forth and work in a larger framework. And that process goes back more than 2 years. In a sense, the decision for me is a bit more straightforward. It will be an extension of my service to the nation. I think the real significant difference will be to my family rather than to me personally. So it's not an easy decision, but it is a decision that we will all come to terms with, because when the country calls, we will try our best to do what we can.
Jun from TV, you just said a lot about love for country, and there are recent surveys of young Singaporeans, and a lot of them talk about emigration and stuff. So how do you think that we try to encourage this love for country?
I won't draw too much conclusions from it. Actually, it is not unknown that as people go through different stages in life, people have different thoughts. If you take a typical Singaporean, as they go through in life, the time which they think most about whether they should stay on, whether they should be committed to here, would be around from the youth to the teens, the 20-somethings, because that's the time where they face a lot of pressures, adjusting, things like that. Then once they settle down with a family, then they become very committed Singaporeans down there. So in a life cycle of the typical Singaporean, the one that we have to work the hardest are the people in their teens and the people in their 20s. Once they have settled down, actually they become the advocates for us, why they must stay here to strike out a better future for the country itself. Yeah. So I'm not particularly worried. I'm optimistic because we have gone through this every generation. No different. Yeah.
And Mr. Chan, Wei Lun from Zaobao. You went straight from your studies into the army. You spent 20 over years. How does this affect your ability to walk the ground and to speak with the people on the ground and to talk bread and butter issues with them?
Yeah. Actually, the Singapore Army is very unique. It is a microcosm of society. Unlike regular armed forces, we get our people from all walks of life in society. People from all walks of life in society come into the military to serve, and they have their fair share of challenges that are a reflection of the society at large. When I was a platoon commander, when I first started out 20-odd years ago, the soldiers that come to me, whether they have financial problems, whether they have broken families, they owe along money, they're selling illegal VCDs. These are challenges that are reflective of Singapore society. Singapore Army is not divorced from the rest of the society. So when I go and meet the ground nowadays, the kind of challenges that they talk to me, they share with me, are very much the challenges that we have been grappling with our own soldiers, with our own NS men throughout the life cycle in national service. And that helps. That helps because there's a common bond to understand some of the challenges that people will have.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned that joining politics is an extension to what you have done. But as a chief, what was that trigger point which made you change from serving in the military to serving in politics?
I don't think it's a change when you have dedicated your life to the military for the last 24 years. What is the purpose? The purpose is to defend the country, to make sure that we have the space to call our own, that our children can be called Singaporeans and have the option to be called Singaporeans. Joining politics is an extension to the service to the nation. So I don't think it's a change, but it's an extension. You have gone onto a different plane to work on a different framework, but the ultimate goal is still the same. And the ultimate goal has been to give our younger generations, our future generations, the chance to be called Singaporean. Personally, I am always very involved, and I think a lot about this thing, about whether our country will always be around. I've never taken for granted that our country will always be around. We are small. We have a short history. We need to fight for that space. And if you look back at our history, it has not been easy. Will the future be any easier? No one can tell. But we know that the challenges will continue to increase. And if we can, we should do our part to make sure that our children have this choice to be called Singaporeans. This is what we believe in.
I have another question.
Yes,
when you got the President's Scholarship, there were a number of articles in the Straits Times done about you, and they mentioned the humble background that you came from.
Yes.
How do you think that has informed the views that you currently hold today, and what are you most grateful for being a Singaporean? What are you most grateful about?
Okay. I come from a humble background. I think there are certain things that shape your life perspective. When you come from a humble background without much resources, you tend to be very careful, very judicious in how you apply those resources. And like the Chinese say, 穷则变，变则通. When you are not so well off financially, you have to be creative to harness those resources that you have to make the best use of it. That is not very different from how Singapore is. We don't always have all the resources to do all the things that we want, but we believe if we can be creative, we can be determined, then we will overcome. So this is one aspect of how the life process affected. Is there any one particular thing that shaped the life? I don't think so. I think as every day we go through in life, you pick on different things, you learn, and you continue to learn. And that must be the attitude that we go through. That never be complacent, that just because I have learned a set of skills, then this set of skills will put me in good stead forever. I always share with my soldiers when I was in the army, the best doctrine, the best fighting techniques that we have is written by the blood, sweat and tears of the soldiers from the last operation. There are no guarantee for success in next operation. It is with the same attitude that we should go through in life to fight for Singapore. Whatever that has worked in the past may not continue to work in the future. We must be bold enough, we must be brave enough to strike out solutions that are uniquely ours. We look at other people, we learn from them, but most importantly, we must ask ourselves, are what they do applicable to our context? If yes, we try to adopt the best practices. If no, then we must be prepared and bold enough to admit that we will find a different and unique solution to our own challenges so that we will continue to be able to stay one step ahead of the curve.